Hey, welcome to Ed, a podcast about the teaching life. This is Conversation 86, and I am your host, Shane Lawrence. Ed is a proud member of the Alberta Podcast Network powered by ATB, and joining me this month is Don Goble. Don, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate this.
It is my pleasure to talk to you today and tell some stories and get to know you and your audience a little bit better.
Well, that's awesome. Honestly, it's this is kind of a quick connection we've made here. I just had someone else say, "Hey, you should talk to this guy," and reached out, and well, here we are. So it's always fun to just kind of dive in and I guess for lack of a better way, a more gentler way of putting, not really know a whole lot other than just to I know you're a well-respected educator. I know you've got a lot of work that you do in media, which is really fascinating. So let's just start there. Let's just let's open up the floodgates here. What is it that you do?
Wow, that's a big question. Could take a long time. I'll distill it the best that I can, but I will say, isn't it cool the power of social media is in the way that we connected, and the gentleman who connected us, I've never met, but we've communicated about our student work from different parts of the country, of the world, actually. So it's really neat to make these connections, and so I'm excited to be on your show. And really, that's one of the things that I do. I mean, I'm a big networker. I enjoy my time on social media, and one of the biggest things that I do on social media is promote my student work. So I'm a public high school teacher, and I teach a course called Broadcast Technology that has multiple layers. I'm starting a new class next year that's called Multimedia Sports Production, which we're going to start creating content for a new video scoreboard that we have for a stadium at our school that just went under a huge renovation. So I'm in my 14th year teaching, and I teach a very project-based class. We have a television studio in our school. We have a large Apple computer lab with 36 workstations. Wow. And 3 private editing bays. We are connected to our journalism classes. So our newspaper and our yearbook are in the same video technology center that we are located. And so it's great to be able to collaborate from a journalism side. I have a lot of kids work on journalism projects, but I also have a lot of kids create other kinds of video production, films, documentaries, hype videos, promotional commercials, public service announcements. And in fact, we have a partnership with a local professional station that gives us content to produce for their programming, which can range from anything from celebrating the military to First Amendment issues, all the way down to studying what it's like to, the life of a dog or how aviation works, and having more of a younger audience. So my students create content for 3rd through 6th grade type students. And so I've been doing that now for 14 years at Ladue High School, which is in St. Louis, Missouri. The kids produce a plethora of television shows. We do a live morning news show that is not related to my classes, which is really cool. It's more of an organization. And then they produce a monthly television student show, or at least a couple times a semester. And we produce a district communications television show that I am the host of, and my students are the technical crew. They work behind the scenes, and it's a live to tape type thing where I interview community leaders about issues that are surrounding our district. And it's a fascinating talking head show for the adults, not so much for the kids. But that's not the audience, right? So it's great because we study all these different forms of audience, and our biggest audience is online. So about 8 years ago, we really pushed a lot of our student content online. We've been promoting and pushing student videos online since 2007, but really started creating a media platform online where students create digital portfolios, individual digital portfolios. And then we also produce and highlight 3 to 6 pieces of new featured content a week on their student website, which is called lhstv.net. So we highlight student videos, student blogs, student websites, poll questions, surveys, photos of the week, and try to engage our audience that way. And so what I try to do in a nutshell is create a college preparatory experience for my students, whether or not they'll end up going into the broadcast or film industry or even to those film or broadcast universities, but provide them with video collaboration and communication and technical skills that they could take to any business or any line of work that they would pursue. And what's great about that is in the last year and a half now, I've actually reached out to some alumni who are now in their respective industries and asked them if our class impacted them or the lessons that they learned along the way, particularly if they are not in the film and television industries, if they were impacted at all, and if so, how and what skills did they learn. And I received over 30 videos from alumni, from a captain in the Army to a nutritionist in Wyoming to a public information officer in the Carolinas of the United States, all sharing stories. And it's been really cool to really build a program for a long time now to just kind of offer a creative space for kids
Mm.
to offer them a different experience than the rest of their high school classes typically are, and have them create a product and prepare them for college and beyond. So that's a little bit about me, and in fact, education is my third career too. So we can talk about other careers later, but this is my third and hopefully last career.
Wow. Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. This is, you put a lot on my plate here all of a sudden. Holy smokes. The
I
one
told you
question.
there's a lot. It's a long story, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Well,
not
I
a
mean,
short answer.
yeah. Well, I mean, I really want to focus on the kids here, but I mean, I just want to ask, like, how do you, like, do you sleep?
Yeah.
That is a tremendous amount of content you must be pushing out. That's insane.
Yeah, yes, we do. We have a really good workflow that we follow. I mean, there are some days more than others that take up a lot of time, but honestly, the further that technology advanced, the easier it's been for us to create and publish and distribute content.
Mm.
And so, in fact, I've had time to, I publish all my curriculum online for free for
Mm-hmm.
teachers to use, not only for broadcast and film teachers, but about the last 8 or 9 years, I've really focused on trying to make media literacy and video and media integration in the K-12 classroom a priority. So I've created and published some work through Apple Education to provide support and resources to those teachers. And I travel all over the world doing workshops, trying to teach the teachers who are not video producers, but understand or see the value of having media creation be a part of whatever class and subject they're teaching. And so I do a whole slew of webinars, and I'll go on site to workshops, and I just love it. I mean, this is my passion. This is what I love to do. It does not seem like work. Some days it does. This month it has, but getting a chance to speak with individuals like you and connect with other educators online. I mean, those are the fun pieces for me to try to offer kids a way to creatively express themselves and use their voices in powerful ways that they may or may not realize.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the fun for me.
So I think that's getting at the heart of what you're saying about the value of media creation. This is really about giving students a voice.
It is. And, I have a laundry list of stories of where kids did not feel that they were a part of something, where they felt that they had a voice.
Mm-hmm.
And my class became a space for them to find their voice. And not only find their voice, and again, not necessarily to fall in love with the passion of video creation, but, find their confidence. That's one thing I love about working with high school students is that they want to figure out who they are. Like middle school students don't know who they are yet. Elementary schools are students, they're grown up and they have a ton of support, but high school, they don't have an agenda. They want to know who they are. They want to know what they like. They don't know what they don't know. And so I love giving them that space. And suddenly the best success stories are the students. For example, one who came into my class as a sophomore, and her parents told me at the first parent conference meeting that she was afraid to order pizza on the phone and that they don't know how in the world she's going to succeed in my class. To, by the time she was a senior, running clients in and out of our classroom, doing promotional and public service announcement video for non-for-profit groups and running the whole show. Wow. So in 2 years, the kid who didn't want to talk on the phone to order a family pizza to basically like being this marketing business manager, just 2 short years later. And so those are the types of stories I love. And that student now is actually a doctor. So, wow. I mean, you never know where it might lead, but those are the great, those are the payments, right? As educators, that's where we find the value and why we do what we do. And that's the type of space I try to create.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I think there's real value to just inherently in the combination of sort of problem-based learning and hands-on learning when students can pick up something, like literally interact with things that create solutions. I think that's a really empowering thing. So you got students like that, and I know I teach film studies as well,
Mhm.
not quite to the same level as you, but just the same. You see these students that you think, really, they're quiet, they're meek, they're whatever, and they come in and they just, they transform, and that's
Yeah.
such a gratifying thing.
I'll give you a couple stories, and this is where I like to talk to other educators, and I know we never discount a kid, right? We'll do
Mhm.
whatever we can to really put forth the best effort and make that child succeed. And sometimes whatever we do, it may or may not work. I had one student who, again, as a sophomore, his father told me he felt like his son was brilliant, but was bored with school, had D's and F's, maybe a few C's if he were lucky.
Mhm.
Didn't want to come to school, wanted to stay in bed and sleep. And he took my first level class, and he kind of liked it, but he didn't love it. And he was sarcastic and he was challenging. He was
Yeah.
funny, like he made me laugh, and I never let him press my buttons, but he actually did a couple things that I saw that looked promising. Like he had some acumen and
Mhm.
some skill. And I told him this. I said, and I think that's a really important thing to do I love catching kids doing things well and celebrating their successes and then calling home and talking about the successes rather than only the problems.
Mhm.
And I told him, I said, Ian, you have a skill for this. I would love to see you in my second level class. And he said, well, Mr. Goble, I don't, there's no way I'm taking your second level class. And I said, I just have to ask why. And he said, well, because you guys do like journalism and films, and that's not what I want to do. And I said, well, what would you want to do? And he goes, well, it's always been my dream to be a meteorologist and tell the weather. And I said, well, Ian, I have an idea for you and an offer. I said, we have a green screen, we have a portable green screen, and we have a green screen wall. I said, what if you signed up for my class and you became our school meteorologist, and you could create the weather, you could do whatever you wanted with it. And that would be and each month I would hold you to new standards and ideas and deadlines, but you would come up with it and I would help you and I would guide you. What would you think of that? And he goes, well, if you would let me do that, I would take your class in a second. I said, great. So
Done.
he signed up and he took the class. And I have to tell you, I've never had a kid work so hard. He would come in 3 to 4 days a week to do a weather forecast that he wrote, that he created the graphics in Keynote, that he would get up at 4 in the morning to storm track and follow the radars, and then write the script. And he would come in by 7:30 and record it, and then not only post it on his website, but he wanted to learn social media then because he saw there were meteorologists doing social media. So I taught him social media, and he created a Snapchat and a Twitter and an Instagram and a Facebook, and he started publishing all of his work 3 to 4 times a week. And I never had to ask him to do anything. He just did it. And it was the second semester of his junior year, his dad came in and said, Don, your class saved my son. He did not want to come to school, but because the only reason he wants to come to school is to do the weather. That's it. But because he's doing the weather, and because you told him if he didn't get his grades up, he couldn't do the weather, he now has A's and B's in every class because he begrudgingly does all the other work, knowing that you will pull that from him if he
Yeah.
doesn't. And so those are the opportunities that I think if we have the ability to do, and I know there's a lot of teachers that are constrained by
Mhm.
standards and regulations and requirements and guidelines, and that kills me to no end. But
Mhm.
if we can find spaces for kids to blossom and give them opportunities that seem appealing to them, we have to try to do that.
Yeah. Sorry, my brain is spinning here.
Good.
Let me search for the flip side of this. Have you ever had a student that just hasn't responded, that you haven't been able to get to?
Absolutely. There's one, maybe two in particular in my career
Mm-hmm.
that I tried everything with. And one of the things I had to learn over the course of my duration as an educator was to never take it personally.
Yeah.
Not only when I didn't connect with them, but even if I did connect with them, to not necessarily take it personally that it was because of me
Mm-hmm.
or necessarily my class. It could have just been an opportunity that opened them up, and it was always there. that I didn't do anything special. So in those cases, when I haven't reached those students, I haven't taken it personally. Of course, you never give up on them, but you also
Yeah.
have to then just push them to do the best with where they are at. That's another big lesson that I've always learned. Not every student is equal in their ability. And so that's why one thing that I love to teach this is because there are so many different layers and levels of success that a student can feel. It does
Mhm.
not have to be a competition. It's not standards based. They can create something they feel really proud of. But there have been a few that I haven't reached. And I think that kind of goes with the territory. But I can also tell you that, about 95% of the kids who sign up for my class are doing it for a high school credit that is required of them.
Right.
And so I have to work to try to hopefully influence them or open their eyes to creative ideas. In some cases, some kids might continue in my program. In other cases, I've had stars who have then not taken my next level that have been crushing, but they found their passion in something else.
Yeah.
And maybe my class was the gateway for them to think about things a little bit differently and then look for what they really were passionate about. And so, those happen every year and every semester, some more harder than others, but
Mhm.
um, there's no way we can reach every kid. All we can do is our best.
All right, we'll get back to me and Don in a second, but first I want to tell you about Park Power. In Alberta, you get to choose who you buy your energy from, and Park Power has low overhead, and chances are you'll save money if you switch. You can find out how much money you would save by visiting parkpower.ca and plugging your numbers into the Alberta Energy Savings Calculator. If you decide to switch, it's easy. Nothing changes about your service, only the price you pay. Learn more at parkpower.ca. All right, let's get back to me and Don. Thank you. That's a nice little piece of honesty. I like to explore that sometimes because I think
Yeah.
we like to focus on our successes, but I think there's also real comfort to know that, we are all working in a real world with real people. And I think back to, a couple students I had last year actually that I just could not get them to engage. And
Yeah.
but I like that. Don't take it personally on either end. That was actually a bit of revelation for me just now. You said, even when they do like you, don't take that personally. Because,
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
it's easy to, right? Like
Oh,
it's easy to
yeah.
say, "Oh, well, I did that and they love it because of me." And
Yeah.
I'm not. I'm smart enough to know that I give kids a space and I give them an opportunity.
Mhm.
And I believe if other teachers were to do the same, they may excel just as well or even higher in those situations. What I do know is that they aren't given those opportunities often enough, which is why I relish the fact that I am the one that gets to offer them that part of their day, that could open up a new creative space for them.
Mhm.
And of course, we celebrate those kids, and I love building relationships with my kids. And like I said, I had over 30 alumni reach out to me. I call them my forever students. I
Mhm.
don't have them just in high school. They are for my forever students. And there are a few that I continue to mentor this day as professionals,
Mhm.
which means the world to me, that they still feel like their high school teacher has something of value to talk about. And I think,
Yeah.
as we all know and believe, that it's those relationships that we build with our kids that make it worth coming to school and to work.
Mhm.
And that's really the foundation of what I do.
Well, okay. So something that kind of keeps popping up in the things you're saying is about, giving students their voice, helping them find their voice. And earlier on, you two were mentioning just the enormous mountain of content you create. I mean, how do you help students find their voice amidst all those different kinds of projects? And how do you help them
Mm,
find the projects that matter to them? Like, what's that process look like for you?
Such a great question. And so I reflect on this a lot, and I ask my students to reflect on it after every semester, after every project. I have them blog about it, and I have them be honest. And sometimes tell them, the more honest you are, even if it's hard for me to hear, um, the more help you're doing. And
Mhm.
so it's a constant reflection. So what I try to do is create guidelines, directions, sequences, and workflows that I believe will work for the majority of students, and then I'm constantly modifying from there. And I will give maybe specific tasks or directions or assignments I want them to focus on, like cinematography, editing, storytelling, the use of color, the use of sound, interviewing, being able to have a conversation with another person that they don't know, but you're capturing it on camera. But I don't give them is the topic. I don't give them the subject, and I force them to come up and create their own ideas that then have to fit within that framework. That's my first level class. And so in some ways they feel there's a little bit of restriction because I think kids feel comfortable in routine and structure. And many times I know that because they'll tell me, well, Mr. Goble, just tell me what to do and I'll do it. And I'll tell them, no, here are your guidelines. You need to figure it out. You need to come up with a creative idea. I'm not going to give you the idea. I have 1,000 ideas. I want to know what's in your brain. What are your ideas? And really, that's where the biggest challenge and struggle lies, where they really struggle, because we do a really good job of, in many ways, desensitizing and pulling the creativity out of them through standardizations and formulas and testing and all those types of things. And so by the time they get to me in high school, to have them think for themselves is like a brand new experience. And once they get through that, when they take my advanced level courses, the second, third, and fourth, then I introduce them to a whole line of ideas. You could do a news package, you could do a film, you could do, here are all the different forms of video that you might experience in your life or that you watch and consume. Mm-hmm. What interests you? And then let's dissect it. Let's break it down, what it took by the second to create one, or like a professional model that you liked. And I'm going to have you recreate that. But again, it's going to be in your voice and in your content and in your area of expertise. And inevitably what we come back to is that, writers, beginning authors and writers write about what they know. Mm-hmm. Filmmakers film at the early stage about what they know. Mm-hmm. Even when they're experienced, they still tell stories of what they know. They may become embellished, but they could be somehow personally connected to them. And suddenly it's like the light bulb goes off, that once they start telling personal stories of themselves, of their family, of their friends, of maybe something that impacted them, but they're doing it in smaller chunks, and within the framework of our assignments, they start to make those connections. And so inevitably, what I like to try to do, and in my first level class, I believe in video production, there's a fundamental learning and foundation in journalism. And so I build my students up to learning the basics of doing a news story, a news package, because that's rooted in journalism. You can teach cinematography for B-roll. You can teach interviewing and conversations to meet people. You're telling beginning and middle and end stories. You're using sound to help tell your story, not music to help influence it, but natural sound. So there's a ton of like real strong elements rooted in a news package. So I build up my kids to that. But then what I tell them is that once you've mastered how to tell a short news package, 30, 60, 90 seconds, mm-hmm. We talk all about media literacy, and that's how the pros do it. And time is money. Yeah. Then I tell them, and they start to realize, well, those skills that they learned are transferable to any other type of video they may want to produce. The cinematography they learned for B-roll, they can now enhance and get even more creative with in a PSA commercial or promo or film. The interviewing that they did, they can get really deeper now with documentaries. And then if they want to learn how to write a script for filmmaking, well, they've done all of that already. Their shots are B-roll. They've learned to storyboard. Now they can start creating some music. The words are their own, and we can start formatting a script. They have to now learn to become a manager and a leader of a team of actors and other, production crew. And I build them up to all of that. So working on the television show gets them working collaboratively with a team, knowing that if one person doesn't do their part for the show, the whole show could flop, or at least that segment could. Mm-hmm. And then they take that over with them to when they go to create a film and they have a crew to work with, or maybe even just one other person they have to work with. And then the cool part is when I have a student say, Mr. Goble, we're learning about dystopian films in my English class, and they want us to write a paper about dystopian films, but I'd like to shoot a film. And my English teacher said she would let me shoot a dystopian film as my final assessment. Can I use your class time to shoot this film? I was like, of course you can. That's amazing. Yeah. So now they're transferring all of those skills and their love of video production, communication, collaboration to their other subjects, because, these aren't just our kids or, mm-hmm. my kids, they're our kids. They're going to all these other classes. And if I can leave an impression on them that through the production of a video that they can feel successful and have a really cool final product that shows they're learning, and then convince their teacher in these other classes to do the same. We've really done, I think, a great job. And that's kind of how it snowballs. But it starts with structure, routine, and the safeness that students feel because we guide them there in education. And then I blow that up when I tell them they have to creatively think of the idea or topic on their own. I don't give it to them. I don't give them a prompt. I don't give them a theme. It is up to them. And that inevitably is where the biggest struggle is. And that's where the greatest learning occurs.
Wow. So in the last 2 minutes, you've completely reset my brain on I have film studies 8 and then 9 and then a high school combined class. And I've completely redesigned my course now in my head. In the last few
minutes. Tell me how.
Well, I like what you're saying, how you kind of build the skill sets. Like I try and build the entire skill set in the first year and then deepen it in the second and then deepen it in the third, fourth, fifth. But I like your sort of piecemeal. It makes it sound cheesy, but I mean, how you kind of approach it like a piece at a time in each grade level. So you're not saying here's everything all at once. You're kind of helping them build the basic skills in the first year and then building on that for the second year, and then, opening things up as they get to a higher level. I like that approach. I mean, I've taught my high school film studies class for, I think it's my 5th year now. And I've never taught it the same way twice. Never. Like just every year is a total, not a total reboot, but I do more adjustment to that course than any other courses that I teach. Just because every year it's like, well, that worked and that didn't work. And the thing that worked last year didn't work this year. So we're going to scrap that and change this. So, I mean, and I got no bones about that. I love that. I do
too. I think that what you're doing takes a lot of guts and risk. And also ultimately is the best thing for your kids.
It doesn't, if it was work or if I was worried about the outcome, it would take guts and risk. But honestly, I just can't stop myself. It's just too much fun. It's just too much fun. Like, ask me to plan a unit for my computers class. I'm like, oh, okay, yes, I will do that. Yeah. I will take care of the children, and I will. But boy, a lot of times it's like, what are you doing? It's like, well, I just had this idea. So now I've planned, the next 6 classes just with this whole new idea. And I got this lab I'm going to do, and we're going to try this and we're going to do that. It's just like, I can't, the ideas won't stop coming. So I just have just a pile of things always coming out of my head. So, which actually gets me back to kind of where I want to get to. I mean, because obviously, you and I, we're in the media thing. I'll bet you we don't represent even a small minority of teachers. I'll bet it's a pretty tiny group. So let's branch out. I mean, do we have it easy? We're talking about, relevance and, lifelong learning and giving kids skills for all the life. I mean, what if like I'm a math teacher and I'm listening to this, I'm like, yeah, but those guys got it easy because they got all the cool tech toys and, they're broadcasting. So how do you bring this around to maybe someone else who's, it's like, well, poo-pooing this whole thing because, I can't do that.
Right. Well, and I talk to a lot of teachers. I have for years to those teachers, and some you can convince and others you can't. Mm-hmm. But what we do know is that at least in high school and now in pretty much every middle school, we have a whole generation of kids who have a video production studio in their pocket.
That's true.
And if we were to allow that, there are a million ways that a math teacher could use video. So, for example, you could, besides just screencasting and writing problems on a smart board and recording that, I've had teachers, take equations and try to relate that to an activity that the student is interested in, maybe basketball, maybe the steps to learning dance, maybe to a musician, and learning those different types of things, and then maybe making a short video in how that would work. But I'll distill it even further. So when I do workshops, especially with K-12 teachers who are not video producers, filmmakers, and I ask them inevitably, and then it's a total softball guiding question. I'll say, all right, how many of you, raise your hand if you have 20 or more students in your class? And inevitably, majority of the hands go up. Some are from, smaller schools where the ratio is smaller, but, a lot of our teachers are dealing with 20, 25, 30 kids in a class. And then I ask them, how many of you are able to conference with each one of those students every single day? And they laugh at me and they're like, of course we can't. There's no way we could. We have too much content. Whether I can meet with 5 at a time, or this and that.
Yeah.
And so I tell them, whether you have a Chromebook or an iPad or a MacBook Air or a phone, if the student were just to hit record on the camera on themselves and ask them in 30 seconds or 60 seconds or less, tell me what you learned today. Tell me the 3 lessons you're taking away from what we just discussed in class. And when you're done with that video, I want you to upload it to Google Classroom or Seesaw, whatever the content management system is. And as the teacher now, I can sit in my prep timer at home and I can watch that back. And now it's not quite a conference. It's more of a one-way. But now I'm inside the brain of that child. I am inside the brain of that child, because not every kid learned what I thought they learned. And many kids heard something maybe different than what I actually said. That happens obviously in our own classes too. And so that really opens my eyes then to go in the next day to, what do I need to cover? Like, I really thought I covered that math, those fractions those fractions assignments perfectly, and then 60% of them are missing the mark. It's like, well, I had it perfect. I had all the directions. What did I miss?
Right.
Well, just because it makes sense to us when we're describing it, it may not make sense to the student. And so the video is a fantastic way for them to share their thoughts, even if it's just a selfie video. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I'll tell kids or offer teachers, have them turn and talk, have them turn and interview. Take that phone out, that iPad out, and interview your partner. Tell me 3 things that you just learned today. Have them listen for follow-up. Maybe they learn now something from that partner. This is the old turn and talk we learned on the carpet in elementary school after we read a book. And now we're recording it, though. And then we capture those videos and we send them to our teacher. And now I have 2 kids getting their inside thoughts to how it all worked. And then I also bring up the example of, especially elementary, middle school teachers, at least, in the United States, we have, they set up what's called centers. Mm-hmm. And they'll have a group of 5 over in that center working on that thing, and a group of 4 over there, and a group of 5, and maybe a group of 3 here on the carpet. They're all doing different things that are all a part of, one major lesson.
Yeah, yeah.
And the teacher walks over and they're, how's it going, guys? And it's going fine, or they might have a question or 2. And then the teacher will inevitably give a couple of pieces of advice, mm-hmm. and then they'll say, all right, I'll be back to check on you later. And they walk away, right, to the next center.
Yeah.
And I ask these teachers, what would you give to hear what the kids are talking about after you walk away?
Yeah.
What would you give to hear that? I would die to know that. And so, push them and say, hit the record button. Everybody's got to go around and say, what did we just hear from Mr. Goble? And what are our next steps to accomplish what he just advised us to do? Mm-hmm. And I said, it's a whole new world. And I go, once you get past just opening the camera app and hitting record and getting comfortable with that and having kids turn in even just a simple selfie video or group video, just talking, it opens up a whole new world to potentially infusing, whether it's video or whether it's social media or some other form of media creation in the classroom. Mm-hmm. Because obviously we know through a lot of research that it's just more engaging for kids if they have a visual to attach to text. Mm-hmm. And that's the beauty of what video does. You're matching visuals to text. And I can go through every single subject matter. And in many cases I do on my website with some curriculum and with some of my published work where I've had, you name the subject, they've used the project, but they've customized it to their particular lesson. Mm-hmm. That made sense to them. So for example, there used to be a teacher who was teaching, science teacher, teaching students how to create a cell, put a cell together. And there were 16 steps. And it was a model. He had 16 pieces of a model cell that they had to put together in groups of 3 or 4. Right. Okay. And they would document their research, and then they would put it together, and then he would look at it and decide whether it was correct or not. Mm-hmm. And then his next step was actually to take photos of their steps, which I thought was really cool. But then he would have them email him the photos. Well, this was a couple of years ago. You could only email 5 emails at a time, without it getting to be too large. And I said, what if you just opened up a real quick, the camera app or iMovie on the phone and just have them write a script first of what their steps were going to be, record them putting each piece together in the cell, explaining why they're putting it where they're putting it. And now you can watch this 1-minute video and you can see exactly where they succeeded or exactly where they skipped a step or did something incorrect or where they got caught. And he implemented that, and he's like, it was life-changing, because now he was able to really dive deeper into where these kids were struggling with comprehension. And it was a simple 1-minute video, step by step,
Mhm.
right? So,
Yeah.
and the kids love it, right? They had fun doing that. It was simple to do, and
Mhm.
and I think that's, you mentioned that the teachers were like, well, I'm not a video producer. This is not what I do. I think the biggest message I give to those teachers are, it's not about us. It's about them. And we have an entire generation that has grown up with a hand-me-down or a brand new iPod, iPad, or iPhone in their
Mhm.
hands nearly since the day they were born. And they are in our classroom, and
Yep.
they don't know any different. And if we don't allow those types of opportunities for them to express learning and get past the fear of distraction, which occurs. I get
Yeah.
kids, who get distracted. It's put it away, but using it as a tool, just like, I mean, imagine back in the days when they create, when we identify that we could use ink and paper,
Mhm.
right, instead of a pencil or chalk. Of course, we're going to use the better of the learning tools. Imagine if we would have had video back then. Of course, we would have used video, but
Mm.
because video is still so new to all of us, it's at the it's really at its beginning stages. And I see it as an opportunity rather than a distraction.
Right. Right. Oh, wow. Don, you have clearly you are sitting on a mountain of ideas here. And I wish we had another 2 hours to chat, but I think we've kind of come to the end of our time here. So
Okay.
if people want to dig into that mountain that you are sitting on,
Yeah.
where can they go?
Yeah. The best place would be to my website, dongoble.com,
Mm-hmm.
dongoble.com.
Mm-hmm.
And under published, there's a lot of published work through Apple Education and articles that I've written and webinars that I've given for the K-12 teacher
Mm-hmm.
about treating their students as journalists, the investigative journalists of their book, of their lesson, of their class, of their school.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you are more of the broadcast or film side, I have broadcast curriculum under resources, under the main resources page. Those are resources for any teacher who wants to implement media creation or video. My contact information is on there. I have all the free webinars that I've done for students to create better videos, video producing classes or non-video classes,
Mm-hmm.
contact information, and I'm always available. If you hit me up on contact there and reach me on social media, if you have a specific question, I will send you resources. I will try to answer it the best that I can and be a support to you, because I respect and appreciate any teacher who is willing to give their students the gift of media literacy and the gift of video and media creation in their classroom, no matter what class or subject it is.
Is there anywhere we can get a hold of you on social media too?
Yeah, so social media, I'm on Twitter at DGOBLE2001.
Mm-hmm.
You can find me on Facebook. If you go to my website, dongoble.com, in the upper right-hand corner
Right.
are all of my social media icons. So LinkedIn,
Okay.
Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can hit me up on any of those. Just click on the icon and it'll take you directly to where you can find me online on social media.
Perfect. Perfect. Don, I love your passion, man.
Thanks.
I love it. This has been a fantastic 40 minutes.
Well, I love what I do. I know sometimes I talk a lot, but when I get going about something I'm passionate about, it's tough to stop.
No worries, my friend. I feel you. I feel it in the exact same way. So thank you for sharing your passion today. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. And thank you for inviting me. I appreciate that.
It's been fun, man. You take care.
Take care. All right.
Bye.
Bye.
This week's episode of Ed is brought to you by the Alberta Podcast Network, powered by ATB. As you probably already know, the Alberta Podcast Network is a collection of Alberta-made podcasts covering every topic imaginable, including one that, if you're like Don and me, is probably pretty close to your heart, and that's movies. So why not head over to albertapodcastnetwork.com and check out Repodcasting. For each episode, you can join hosts Janet and Lucia as they recast their favorite and their not-so-favorite movies. It's just one of the many great podcasts you can find over at albertapodcastnetwork.com. And if you just can't get enough of this show, or you'd like to be a guest on it, you can email me at theedpodcast@gmail.com or hit me up on Twitter at theedpodcast. If you want to listen to more of Ed, you can head over to the website, theedpodcast.podbean.com, or of course you can subscribe in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the podcatcher of your choice. Just search up Ed Conversations. Ed can also be heard on VoiceEd Radio. It's 24-hour internet broadcasting devoted to the best ideas in education. Just head over to voiced.ca. So, on behalf of myself and Dawn, thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you next time.